Oh yeah, sexy biscuits. Nice.
Long boys blues, 1975. A YouTuber's on the rise. Reviewing games, and sometimes friends. But Long boys blues, 1975.
Hey YouTube, Lumboys Post 1975, and welcome to another Nostalgic Memories of video. This is a video that I've been wanting to make for absolutely ages because I've touched upon this topic, my favourite arcade as a child, in many videos before, going back 10 years, but never simply tried to address as much as I can remember about the content of the arcade in one video. And this is also probably one of my most requested videos, because not just when I do vlogs and things like that, every time I play a retro game, I immediately remember whether or not I played it, not just in any arcades, but this arcade. And so I don't know the name of this arcade. I don't even know if it had an arcade. I know, or at least there were, maybe 6-7 years ago, a couple of people from Westward Ho, which is where this arcade was and where our holiday home, our chalet, was when we used to obviously get to visit this arcade. A couple of people who lived there. So maybe they can remember if they lived there back then. Now, I'm pretty sure it's not there now. I'm pretty sure when I revisited this place years and years ago, probably in 2007, that I went to this site and it wasn't there. But then obviously arcades were ultimately killed by the Xbox generation of consoles, Xbox 360 I should say, because no longer was the arcade considerably higher in power than, you know, the systems you could play at home. I mean, look at many of the arcade machines you get now. Basically they're all fucking light gun games, but they're not even light gun games. They're light gun games, or masquerading as light gun games, but they're analog joystick games. I mean, if you look at like Transformers and The Walking Dead and stuff like that, and even the Rambo light gun game, which was a proper light gun game, and I have a gameplay of that in an arcade, they had hardware that was very similar to, or possibly even PS3 related. I don't know, never owned a PS3, so I could be completely nutty wrong on that one. But the point being, while there are arcades in Western Supermare down the road from me, and that would be the last place, and you get a few arcade machines and bowling alleys and cinemas and stuff like that, the heyday, very sadly, of the arcade is long and truly gone. Rest in peace. That's why, as a kid, this particular arcade was just like, it was better than any arcade ever, anywhere I've ever been since or now, based on what I just said about modern arcades being utterly pap. I mean, we were very lucky. We used to go on holiday in Minehead. Sorry, in Blue Anchor, which was just down the road from Minehead, and up the road from Watch It. There were arcades everywhere there, and there were a couple of arcades in Minehead which were utterly fantastic, and I got to play Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, Paperboy, Track and Field. They had a hexagonal pool table, all kinds of great Gauntlets, Punch Out, amazing arcade machines. But that arcade, while it wet my whistle, didn't hold a fart to this arcade, because I remember we were in a caravan site, and my dad owned the caravan. It was a big long bay caravan. Obviously I've done a video on it, Nostalgic Memories of going on holiday in a caravan, because it didn't have electricity or toilets. Look up that video, but still some of the best holidays of my life. And the site was bought out by someone else, and he didn't like the new rules and things like that they were going to introduce. So he sold the lease he had on the caravan, and basically we went to Westward Ho. I remember we went to a couple of places. He took us to these locations when we still frequented the caravan, knowing that we were, well, him knowing that we were going to go somewhere else, and we checked out a bunch of campsites, and he checked out this one in Westward Ho, just down the road from Bideford, and it was absolutely fantastic. So this must have been for like 1986, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, so 5 years there. So, you know, just before the polygonal age of, or the true polygonal age of arcade machines kicked in. But what I like to call the mid-80s to the 90s, or to 1990 I should say, is to me the golden age of arcades, because all these machines, they were trying to port to the micros, you know, my beloved ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64, Amstrad, sorry, Amiga, Atari ST, then all the consoles started coming out, NES, Master System, Mega Drive, and obviously SNES was 1990. and TurboGrafx-16 PC engine, basically, in this country, because, well, and even though it never came out here, so all these machines that you fell in love with, even in Minehead, knowing that these games were coming home to the micros in cases like Star Wars, you know, the arcade Star Wars, the Domart ported, that was fantastic. It could be done. They could do very good ports of games. I mean, I remember Ghosts and Goblins I played in Western Superman was through the moon when that got announced for ZX Spectrum. So one of the first games I bought with my own money, and it was absolutely fantastic. Anyway, Westward Ho. So our chalet was number 71. It had 2 bedrooms. It had a kitchen with a bar, and then obviously the lounge was around that. It had a bath and shower and 1 toilet. So it was practically luxury compared to our caravan. And the campsite, in the top of it where they had the shop, they had a big projector screen where there were a bunch of VHS tapes. As kids, you could just go up there and ask the guy who ran the shop, and he would put them on for you. A whole bunch of stuff like Spider-Man cartoons, all the old school Marvel cartoons. Cartoons might be too strong a descriptive term for what they were when you look at the animation, but like 60s Spider-Man stuff like that. Loved it. Terrorhawks, things like that, Thunderblades. And then he had a very small arcade that just had fruit machines. Never liked fruit machines as a kid. I guess you've either got that gambling thing in you, or you haven't got that gambling thing in you. Unfortunately, I don't have that gambling thing in me. And a couple of pool tables, but the entire site was down a hill like that, and there were multiple paths running across big open grass areas, loads of open grass areas. Me and my brothers used to sit on our skateboards and go down these hills, chucking stones and shit in a stick with a piece of string on under each other's wheels. Think the minecart scene from Indiana Jones. That's what it felt like to us when you're like 11 years old. Yeah, trying to get them to fall off their board. But literally the end of the campsite, you'd go down a flight of steps and you were on the seafront. Like, that was it, you were on the seafront. And then there was a pavement that was probably 15 foot, drop down. Once it dropped down, pebbles everywhere, sand. That was it, that was the beach. It's a British beach. Beach may be too strong a descriptive term for what was Westward Ho. Although up around the other side, there was a bunch of sand there. But yeah, so it was a beach right on the doorstep of your chalet. So not just did we didn't just play arcade games all day long. There was loads of stuff. You know, it was a site of great beauty. You know, the local area and stuff like that. Beattyford was an awesome town. Barnstable was an awesome town. I even like Appleford. Was it Appleford? Appledore. Appleford's a fucking cider, Dave. Appledore. Because it had a cool little Mariners museum in there that I remember. But this place, you used to walk along the seafront, keep going along the seafront, or, because every morning I used to go and get the paper from my dad, I'd stand on my skateboard and just open my jacket like that, and it would blow me all awkward. The wind would blow me all the way along the seafront, and I'd walk up to the newsagent, and there was a thing. My beloved arcade was right at the end of the seafront, to which literally the proper touristy side of the village with all the shops began. And so there was, like this, my arcade, wasn't that big. My arcade, chip shop, round the corner up, there was a bar with some arcade machines in it, and they opened it up for kids in the morning. Or kids were allowed in there, I should say, because there was a load of arcades in there for a bar. I don't know about the legality of that, but hey. And then you walk to the other side, there was an arcade over there where I first saw and played Moonwalker, which blew my mind. Then if you came back down to the seafront and walked along, I want to say the Sands, there was an arcade in there that was mainly full of bingo machines. I never understood that whole thing. Sat in front of a machine, someone calling out numbers like a one-armed bandit thing. Then I never played it, so how am I supposed to know what it's like? They had Marble Madness in this electromechanical horse racing gambling game. Now I say I never liked the gambling thing. It was a penny. And literally mechanical horses would go along, and you put your coins in on the coloured slots for each of the horses. Fantastic. Anyway, and up here was Newsagent. Newsagent was cool. Used to sell American comics, so I used to buy a bunch of American comics there. And then, because it was slightly downhill, I stand on my skateboard and then just skate back to the top of the chalet park and then down the ramps back to our chalet. But anyway, walking along the seafront, and this would have been one of the first things we saw on the first times we were there. We were walking along, and there was this massive arcade, and you could hear the noise of all these machines just bellowing and flashing out and stuff like that. And it was joined onto a chip shop, which you will know if I ever talk about Double Dragon, which I have recently. I always talk on the fact that I used to get money from my parents Friday night when we got to the site, so obviously no one wanted to cook, and we go and get fish and chips. And while they were cooking the fish and chips, and they were pretty fucking banging. I've just had breakfast, so I'm still hungry talking about this. Banging fish and chips. but you would walk down, it had its own door into the arcade. It was physically the same building. It's a very odd building when I start talking about, you know, inside the arcade. I cannot think for the life of me what it was originally designed for, but it was a big, fat, ugly grey concrete building, and all around the windows there were like, it was either wood or plastic. It was blue, it was like navy blue, and there were only windows on one side of the arcade, the side which you would walk by on the seafront looking out to the sea, so that would make sense. Obviously built or developed for some sort of tourism thingy, but I don't know. I don't know what it was before we got there. I mean, it probably, looking at it being a flat roof, ugly concrete building, it was probably something that was constructed in the early to mid 70s, but it did not have a name. And I'm pretty sure that's not because I can remember it. I'm pretty sure the chip shop didn't have a name either. Like, because it's not that you wouldn't look up when you were a kid, so you'd never see it. It's just, I must have walked by that every day 4 or 5 times, and I just cannot recall seeing a name. So I'm pretty sure it didn't have a name, and the chip shop didn't have a name. Now, obviously, you go into the chip shop here, the counter will be right in front of you. You order your chips, and you go down through a door there. But if you didn't, you would walk up along the seafront of the arcade, and there'd be another door, double door here, which was its own entrance straight into the arcade. But more often than not, I would go through the chip shop entrance. And basically, you've got to remember, this is an amalgamation of various memories. So 5 years of arcade machines in this place. So I'm probably going to contradict myself in a few places and talk about arcade machines that were probably physically in the same location, unless I remember to point out the year or something, which is unlikely because nostalgia is a hell of a drug. But honestly, trying to remember something from 35 plus years ago, even you have a massive amount of love and nostalgia for it, it gets a bit tricky. So some liberties may be taken, but yeah, odd building, very odd building. You would walk down the stairs, I don't even know, in 1986, we'll say we take a midpoint of years, so stuff like Afterburner was in there as well, and Thunderblade and Outrun, but we'll get to that. There must have been hundreds of thousands of machines in here, and obviously I'm assuming they were all rented, and they were on all day. It would open at about 11 o'clock and it would close at 11 o'clock at night, so 12 hours. There was no toilet in there whatsoever, and there was one tiny little counter, you know, the old like sort of round circular counters with a door lock on the back with someone going in. They'd sit there all day and give you change. I mean, there were change machines that would break a pound coin into 10p's, but there was one booth that one person sat in. They must have done shifts, and they must have had a deal with like the local pub or something where they could go for a slash or a shit, because you ain't making 12 hours, are you? What a job as well. My god, all these people walking around smoking as well, because you could smoke in arcades back then, although I don't remember this smelling particularly bad. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll go back a little bit, but just let's talk about this booth. Sat there, even if you broke it up into shifts of 4 hours, that must have been one hell of a boring ass depressing job. Anyway, so you will walk down the stairs or in through the seafront, but we're going to start with down the stairs because it means I can start at the furthest point of this building, the arcade machines I remember. It was quite a light building, even though there were only a few windows on one side. I mean, obviously it was lit up everywhere. And like most arcades, particularly the ones I remember from Minehead, it didn't smell of BO piss, shit, shame, and it wasn't even particularly bad for cigarettes. I can remember smelling smoke, but I don't ever remember being completely overpowered by it. But when you walk down the stairs, immediately on your right hand side, there was a Play Choice 10. This was the first time I saw a Play Choice 10, and for around about a few years at this point, I was deciding, ooh-and-ahhing, whether or not just to get a NES to complement my Master System instead of a Mega Drive. I think it's safe to say how we all know that one played out. But I did like the Play Choice 10, played a few things on it, mainly Gradius, because like I said, it was me getting to experience NES games, but I wasn't a fan of the time limit. But that was there, that was cool, that was interesting. And next to it was one of the older arcade machines, and I cannot remember the name of it for the life of me, but you will know it when I mention it to you. The old one with the submarine, stethoscope? You know, the fucking thing that comes out of the water. I can't think of it. Periscope. Sorry. Oh my god. And it had like a visor, magnification. It was crude graphics. I want to say it was Sega. And they had a box you could stand on if you were particularly short. Putting your face on that thing would have been taking your life into your hands. But I digress. Remember that. Remember play choice 10. Now, in front of us was a circle of arcade machines, and as I said, you know the first one, Double Dragon. That was there indefinitely during my time visiting this arcade. And then to the left of it, I want to say Commando. Love Commando, but it kicked my ass, and I played the Double Dragon cabinet for fucking every time I was in there. Loved that, me and my brothers. Fantastic, absolutely amazing. Then there was Commando, which was obviously 1985, so an older game, not as old as the Periscope one, the submarine one by Sega, I should say, Periscope game. And then next to that, next to the, I've got to have to think about it. Next to that, next to that was Arkanoid, the original Arkanoid machine with the twisty analog stick, roller, whatever, knob. Didn't get on with that, did like it, played it loads of times, but it kicked my ass. But it did inspire me to buy the Spectrum version when it came out, which was an excellent port. And then round from that, I want to say it was POW by SNK, which I love because I like side-scrolling beat 'em ups, and I did like the fact it was, unlike Double Dragon, it was more just, it really was truly side-on, and the military aspects of it, and the fact that, you know, you're in the jungle and shit like that. And then, yeah, obviously there was Joust, which I never got on with Joust, but I do understand and appreciate what a classic it was. And then later on, they swapped out Commando or Arkanoid for Black Tiger, which I played. Since I would always see this, the minute I walked into the arcade, I would always try a new machine here. And I love Black Tiger. Again, I was shit at it, but it was a hooky one in this place, and it was called Black Dragon. I swear, this is how I remember it. My memory's pretty good. I mean, up the road, I've said this before, there was a hooky Sega Shinobi machine with a really strange colour palette, and it was like copyright beta. I don't mean it was a beta, it would say copyright beta, or better, depending on how you pronounce it. And then, to the immediate left, for a while, there was an Enduro Racer cabinet, and it was the proper was it a sit-down cabinet? I can't remember. Or was it one where you just had the handlebars, but you still had to pull it up? I want to say the 1/3 sit-down cabinet. Love that, inspired us to get it on the ZX Spectrum. That blew my mind away. Super Scalers by Sega. That was one of the best things about this arcade, and we'll get to better ones in a minute. Spoilers! I've already spoiled them. But they always had the scalers in this. They always had the scalers, and it was utterly fantastic. Then, to the left of, oh, I forgot, directly behind you against the wall, when you're looking at this circular, carousel of arcade machines with Double Dragon, for a while they had lightning fighters. I remember that, Konami. I loved it because of the rotational joystick for when you finally got your full lightning gun, which is why it sucks when you emulate it on Coin-Ups 8 through my OG Xbox. But I do try it from time to time because I just remember it being in that arcade. So then they swapped Enduro Race out, which even as a kid I thought was a stupid idea, but then I don't know what makes money in these arcades, with one of those basketball games where you shoot hoops, which was stupid because this was not an arcade that had any of those sort of machines that print tickets and you could redeem them for a prize. If you saw how small that little bit change box was, where the I always remember it being a really miserable woman wearing glasses, but then I wear glasses now, so I can't complain. And probably look just as miserable. So I don't know what you got out of this other than competing with your mates. So I never understood that. Then in the corner, in the far left corner, is another one that was obviously a hooky ROM. It was Splatterhouse, and I loved it. That's why whenever I play it on MAME, the sound just brings me back to this arcade, because the bowling ball noise when you twat someone against the wall in the arcade was fantastic. And also it was probably the most gory and violent arcade machine I'd ever seen at that point, and clearly recognised it was inspired by Jason Voorhees. Really did like that arcade machine, really liked it. That's another reason that I have such fond memories for Splatterhouse these days. But it was called Slaughterhouse, and this isn't some mismemory thing or that like that, or Mandela effect shit going on. It was called Slaughterhouse, and then it's replaced, because before that for a bit they had Terra Cresta, and I love Terra Cresta. I don't know why. I had it on the Spectrum after this, but I really enjoyed Terra Cresta. And of all the arcade machines in it, like I said, Lightning Fights, you could argue this was one of the more limited in its appearance and graphics to other stuff that was going on. But I loved it. By the way, no R-Type in this arcade. no R-Type. The next to that was Mag Max. They're both Nitsubutsu, is it? I think. There's another one from the indie people we'll get to later on, if I remember. That's the problem with this video. Anyway, so yeah, obviously they were swapped out at some point, Splatterhouse and Terra Cresta. In the middle, for years, there was a 4-player Konami wrestling game from the moderately late 80s that had really small sprites, but it was really, really nice graphics, and I liked it. Big cabinet, right, you know, because it's 4 players. I liked it, but I could never get on with the moves, so I only played it a couple of times. Sorry, Windy Pops, because obviously wrestling was huge in this country at that point. And then that got swapped out for some point, probably 1989, when the craze started sweeping over the Teenage Mutant, because it wasn't the American one, it was the English one in it, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles 4-player cabinet. When that came into this arcade, me and my brothers were happier than pigs in shit, because we'd seen it in magazines and Turtles was huge, and that still is to the day one of the most polished, best looking, best sounding, true representation of the source material in a fighting game ever, and that was a huge deal. Sank loads and loads of money into that. Now all these arcade machines, from what I can remember, including Turtles, were 10p a pop. There were pool tables, we'll get to that. There was air hockey, we'll get to that. The location, they were only 50p. And all the hydraulic cabinets, you know, like your Arthur burners and your whatnot, they were definitely only 50p. Nothing was a pound in this place, from what I can remember. Whether or not in the immediate, you know, period of the 90s after we stopped going here, because we went to America in 1991 and 1992, and then obviously family holidays stopped for me because I was a young adult. So you want to go somewhere, you paid for it yourself, which I did many times, hence my love affair and moving to Canada. Anyway, getting off topic. So before Turtles, though, at some point there would have been the Data Reach Robocop machine, and also being a massive fan of Robocop, and I bought my UK Marvel movie adaptation comic, black and white, when we were on holiday in Westward Ho. But yeah, having loved the movie Robocop, that was an absolutely fantastic game. Well, you know this when I do my gameplays, many of the memories and strong attachments I have to arcade machines are all because of the ones I played in here. So yeah, it probably would have been the wrestling game, then Robocop, then Turtles, and then because it was in the middle against a pillar. This is what I mean about being such an odd building. You would then walk into like the kind of middle part of the arcade machine, and there'd be pillars, but it'd all be open now, as if I'm looking down the arcades, like a big open room. And then on the right, where the windows were, it was like there was the wall, and this bit here went out like that, and then there was like, you know, it was like an extension, and that was where the 2 pool tables were, and the air hockey. And one of my memories is just people going mental on the air hockey. It was usually more people, you know, in their adult years. Maybe that's why it was next to the pool machines, and I can just remember them massive noises it used to make. There was a little arcade machine here against like one of the walls before it extended out, and it was a vector graphic top-down fire truck game. Can't remember what it was called, never played it, just remember looking at it, because if you walked into this bit here with the 2 pool tables and the air hockey table, that was the other entrance I was talking about, be directly behind you there. And where I talked about the chains booth with the bird in, where these pool tables were, and you came up the extension, you went there so slightly, that's where that was. Again though, no pisses in this place. So you walk past Robocop, if you turn around, this whole place was intermittently mixed with fruit machines, which is why some parts of this, not just because I can't really remember what was there, I'm going to make them sound really, really sparse of arcade machines, but it wasn't. It was all intermittently mixed with fruit machines, old school ones, one-arm bandits, mechanical ones. Do still kind of like them, played them a couple of times back then, the 2p ones, just because of the whole mechanical nature. It was fantastic, love that. Then there was obviously traditional fruities with the buttons and stuff like that. The fruit machines went up to 20p a go, and then there were ones that had the digital, completely digital display, and even as a kid I knew that fruit machines were rigged, but I always remember thinking, look at the ones that were digital, that's properly rigged. It's a fucking digital display screen, it's a graphic depiction. I mean, I'm sure there were probably laws garnering what your win rate was in that and stuff, but I just thought, it's a video game fruit machine, that's a con, and I know everything because I'm fucking 11. And so these were all intermittently mixed out through all the arcade machines. And then on the floors, filling up the massive gap in the middle in various places. There was one actually just before the pool tables, not too close obviously because you couldn't play pool in the air hockey, but they had big circular carousel penny pushing machines. Some were 5s, 10s, 1s and 2s and stuff like that. I'm not a gambler, but I did enjoy those. Probably because we first played them as a treat when we were too young to appreciate what arcade machines were, video games. But in Blue Anchor and Minehead, our parents will let us have goes on those. But yeah, still like those. Brilliant. You used to be able to walk around and every now and then you just take some change at the bottom. And if you were lucky, the 10p ones would have some change at the bottom that people forgot. And you'd get a few extra goes when you exhausted the money that your parents gave. Because we were only just still on pocket money. I can't even remember what my pocket money was when I was a kid. When I was sort of like, when we were here, which would have been 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. But wouldn't have been, and well, I mean, I had more than most people because obviously I worked for my dad and at that pub. But I bought so many comics, games, saved up for so much stuff, and many of my gaming choices, especially Mega Drive time, were shaped by this arcade. But yeah, so there were those penny shuffle machines, and they were fantastic. Then immediately after them would be where the hydraulic area was, and just to the right of that was, I don't know what this is called, I've looked for it many times. It was huge. It's as big as the wall in front of me, top to bottom, which means nothing to you, but based on your house you should get some sort of indication of how big that is. And it was, you sat down in a seat, and it wasn't graphics, it was electromechanical. And you were in a helicopter, and you had proper helicopter controls, and you turned with your feet, and you fired rockets. And on the other side of the, I was going to say windscreen, cockpit, probably a better descriptive term, there was a still flat, obviously painted, image depiction of the floor that was moving around, but your rockets would fire like that, kind of like they did when Luke was in the trench run. So I don't know how old that was, but I did like it and played it a couple of times because it was huge. To this day, I do still wonder what the Alecki bill must have been for this place. Anyway, right, so that was literally floating around against one of the walls. Might have been just before or just after the chains booth, because like I said, the thing is, the more I talk, the more memories suddenly pop in. And you're like, suddenly the room's just got a little bit bigger, but you know what I mean. But, so we talk about 1988, then this bit in the middle was fantastic, because they had Space Harrier, which I had experienced in Western Superman, but still had a soft spot for it. You could hear, that was another one of the machines where you could hear, particularly the scream, over everything else. You could always hear the air hockey, you could always hear a hard break on the pool table, but you could always hear Space Harrier and the Get Ready and the scream. But they had that. Then they had Afterburner in front of it, and the first time I saw Afterburner, knowing of it, I was 50p a pop. Wasn't the cabinet like you see in Terminator 2? It was kind of like Space Harrier, more, because there were like not just stand-up cabinets, but there were a couple of variations or iterations of the hydraulic cabs, weren't there? And that was the one that was more like a floating seat, and it would have been Afterburner 1. And I still have Indie Pops. Nostalgia gives me Windy Pops, and that was the first time I ever played that. Knew of it, from various ports, and I got to play this after I'd probably played some of the various ports, probably like the Spectrum one and stuff like that, but not Master System. I don't know, fuzzy memories again, but that blew me away, because your parents would stand there and they could look at it and just go like, there's no way you're going through this on 10p. I understand what this is doing. I understand what this is doing to my pocket as your parent. But you didn't see through it like that as a kid. You just wanted to be, because it was so loud, and the fact that it moved and the flashing lights on the cabinet, all the bells and whistles just made it so immersive. So there was that. Afterburner, Space Harrier. Space Harrier was the original one there. And then Outrun was the one that I remember seeing being added since. And that was the big sit-down cabinet with the wheels on the back of the chair. Played that loads and loads of times. Never get further as a kid more than a couple of stages into it. But it didn't matter, because I just remember it looking phenomenal. I still think it looks visually utterly fucking fantastic. And obviously it still has some of the best music ever made in an arcade machine. And like I said, it was the big hydraulic cabinet, so that was just an experience in itself. I think even my dad, because he was a mechanic and loved cars, was a bit impressed with that one. And then behind that, facing the wall on the left hand side at a right angle to this, and this would have kicked in 1987, and I absolutely loved this, and you'll know this from my Thunderblade gameplays, because it's, well, Thunderblade, and it was the well, it was more mechanical gear based from what I remember. Again, this is 35 years ago and stuff. And you'd move the helicopter joystick and it would make the cabinet move in the opposite way. But it was basically very slim. It had helicopter skids on the bottom, which was a cool touch, and you have to, you know, the proper yoke and the accelerator and stuff like that. But it was more, it kind of reminds me of the Conix chair in how it looked, if that makes sense. Obviously, with a bit more bolted on the outside and Thunderblade and Sega and stuff like that. But that became an absolute particular favourite of mine. You know, the first time I saw Thunderblade and loved the whole, you know, it made me realise that it wasn't just about, you know, hydraulics and that throwing you around and shit like that. Just something as simple as that. Just give you the immersion that you're in a helicopter, despite the fact that you could smell cigarettes and constantly hear everything else going on around you and hear people talking. Which apparently I hear is not so much an issue when you're flying at 30,000 feet. But yeah, so that was all the hydraulic cabinets they had. They were all Sega ones. They didn't have any other ones. But I'm fine with that, because ask anyone what their favourite, you know, or hydraulic cabinets are, what their first memories of ever seeing a hydraulic cabinet, it would have been Sega. So then on this wall, going down this way, once again, intermittently, loads of fruit machines. You see, I've got it up here, so you're not seeing it. So as a kid, I probably thought this arcade, because I was small, was a lot bigger than it actually is. It was still pretty big. It had to be to fit those cabinets in the middle. Again, I'd love to know what this building was built for, because it's a fucking odd, ugly concrete building. On the floor, blue and grey vinyl check squares everywhere. The other thing that pissed me off about this, sorry, another random memory that's just jumped in there, was all these arcade machines, because I talked about, you know, you could smell smoke, all these arcade machines had ashtrays built into them, because that's what they did then. I don't know if that was an afterthought and they cut the cabinets themselves, the people who rented them out and fitted it, or he did that to the few. He must have owned some of these. So even as a kid, I understood the value of money and someone else, respect you should have someone else's property. So the fact that you would see cigarette burns, fag burns really pushed, and sometimes you'd see a cigarette butt where someone done that still on there, to me just like, you disrespectful motherfuckers. Like, you clearly like coming here, you know, you clearly like playing these arcade games, you know. Why aren't you showing them a little bit more respect? That's terrible, unless they blame them for how they were always broke. But then that's on you. Don't go to the fucking arcades, or give up smoking, and then you can spend more time in the arcades and not die. So yeah, that, even as a kid, that annoyed me. But so loads of arcade machines intermittently down here. There was a, so I know I mentioned there was a Play Choice 10. There was a Super Mario Brothers one down here, which considering some of the other stuff in it, particularly when we got to like 88, 89, 90, I'm still, even as a kid, amazed at how many people, because in 89 and 90, obviously I had a Mega Drive. Yeah, still amazed at how many people were playing this and how many people were watching it. But then I know more now about the speedrun nature of it and all the secret warps and hidden stuff than I did then, probably because I opted to get a Mega Drive and not a NES. And so I can see why people would be there and they'd be watching people who were particularly good at it and be impressed. Then there was, like, you know, more fruit machines, fruit machines, fruit machines. No claw machines. No claw machines in this arcade. Was thinking about now, because every other one had it, and me and my brother cleared out the sands, 10p claw, 10p a go for a claw machine with soft toys in, and they didn't loosen up the claw. Me and my brother took the entire contents out of it. I don't know what you do with that many plushy toys when you're 12, but fuck it, we had it. But anyway, so going down this wall here, then there would be a couple of my favourites. There would be New Zealand Story, which I fell in love with. I adore that game, and it was this arcade, and I would play it, and I was pretty good at it, and every now and then I'd have a couple of people watching me. But Tato's New Zealand Story and the music, and yeah, and to this day I never worked out how I got to heaven, because there's a stage when you're in heaven and you have a halo, and all the bad and weird that the bad guys would have halos because they're in heaven, but they're still trying to kill you, and they're bad guys. And then if you died anyway, even though you're in heaven, you should be immortal. But yeah, love that New Zealand Story, absolutely fantastic. And then next to New Zealand Story, this is the biggie, and I remember knowing how big and popular this arcade machine was, Golden Axe, when they were talking about it in Mean Machines and stuff like that, that when we were driving to this, you know, to Westward Ho from my parents' house to go on holiday, I knew that quids in, because I just desperately wanted to play it, quids in, there was a very high chance that they would have Golden Axe. And they had Golden Axe, and that was just, And I was so pleased that they did, because obviously certain arcade machines come along and you have to play them and you just want to play them. Also, somewhere along this wall here, just remember this, was Dynamite Ducks, which I played a few times because I saw that in magazines and really loved the art style. And obviously all Sega games were must-plays at this point. So yeah, there was Dynamite. I know this is just more like a tour of an arcade, but people have asked, and got to get it out there just to know if I can still do it in my memory. So yeah, New Zealand Story, Dynamite Ducks. Next to Dynamite Ducks, next to there was Golden. Oh, Wrestle War was on this wall here. Wrestle War, which I fucking loved, because again I said wrestling was huge at this point. So yeah, Wrestle War was on this wall, and I absolutely had to play that because of the size of the sprites, and clearly everyone in it was ripped off from WWF and WWE. So yeah, that was like a nice little pocket of some of my favourite arcades. And then going along the back wall, getting intermittent fruit machines, not much that I wanted to play, but there was definitely prehistoric aisle. Pretty sure it was prehistoric aisles, or P45 or 47. P45 is a document in this country when you get made redundant. But they were both SNK, weren't they? So yeah, and then I liked the graphic style of prehistoric aisles, but absolutely kicked my ass, really properly kicked my ass. And then going along this wall, there weren't many more. Sometimes there were complete gaps, just complete gaps. It wasn't like continuous line of arcade machines, probably because you didn't want them to overheat. And I've missed a bunch of arcade machines out in this video, I guarantee that, and I apologise about that. More so, I apologise to me. But we're in the home stretch now. Then you would hit this wall, coming up this way, back towards the both entrances or exits. Obviously you enjoy them more when they're an entrance, and you're a little upset when you're an exit because you're out of cash at that point. Along this wall, there was definitely Pac-Land. I remember Pac-Land, that was further up this way, and it was the Pac-Land which I wanted to play because I still love the cartoon. You know, particularly 1986 when we get there. I loved the cartoon when I was a kid. So, and the fact that it was Pac-Man in a side-scrolling, you know, fucking shiny and fantastic 16-bit looking game. Loved it, had to play it, but it was the one with the buttons, left and right and jump. So it was a 3-button arcade machine. It was not a joystick, which as a kid was a bit, what? But then you would think that wouldn't be a problem for me because I grew up playing arcade conversions on the ZX Spectrum. But just around from the corner coming up, there was an arm wrestling machine. I don't know who made it, but there was an arm wrestling machine, and I always found that kind of odd, like a little bit odd. There was never interested in it either. Never ever interested in it. Funnily enough, there wasn't one of those machines that you would punch as hard as you could. Don't know why I had to show you what a punch was then, but apparently I did. And then to see who will get the highest strength. Probably because they were shit and pointless. But so yeah, there was that wrestling machine, and then coming up from that, there was, oh, they had a Wonder Boy in Monsterland, which obviously would have been a hacked ROM as well, because there was no true Western release of that. And all the ones that I hear was quite a few that showed up in the United Kingdom were hacked translation ROMs, which worked for me because I loved it, absolutely loved it. Odd choice, a kind of RPG game in the arcades, but yeah, loads of other people loved it. Before that though, actually there was an original Wonder Boy game which I had a soft spot for because I had it on the Master System, but also I could realise when I played it on the Master, in the arcade, sorry, after I had it on the Master System, that yeah, the Master System version wasn't arcade perfect, like all the magazines told us, and we all bragged about to our mates. So yeah, arm wrestling machine, Wonder Boy in Monsterland. I've got a, oh, Galavan. I told you another Nitsubitsu, I can't remember, you know, the people who made Terra Crested. There was Galavan, and for whatever reason, I don't know why I was attracted to that arcade machine. I think it was because you turned into a cyborg, or you got that funny suit, but you didn't have it all the way through the game. You started off looking like, you know, Link from Zelda. Something about that game just always drew me to it. This would have been, obviously, this whole me talking about this arcade, I've jumped forwards and backwards in timescales and periods and stuff like that. Like I said, remembering certain things, because I would have fallen in love with that in around about 1986, and then it would have come out on the ZX Spectrum, which I loved as a kid on the ZX Spectrum, but if you play it now, it's an awful conversion. But I still have nostalgia for it. So yeah, there was a Galavan. I want to say there was an elevator action as well, which would have been an older arcade machine at this point. And also, I want to say, coming further up and maybe being jutted out from the wall ever so slightly, and I'm not sure what period, but they had a Chase HQ. They definitely had a Chase HQ, and I really wanted to like it. I really, really wanted to like it. But because I liked Outrun, but I just found it too. I know now you can beat it in like 20 minutes. I can. I just found it too brutally hard. But I think it's safe to say my favourite bits of this arcade were when you went immediately in, dependent upon the year because of Turtles, Robocop, Splatterhouse, Double Dragon. That was one of my favourite parts. Also, by the way, moving around again on this wall going up here. Before I mentioned, we got to Chase HQ. There was definitely a bomb jack, which I loved because even as a kid I could see. Excuse me, what a timeless, idea for an arcade machine that was. And also, when I talk about the entrance down from the chip shop, one of those machines in the Splatterhouse area and Terra Crest area at one point was Pac-Mania. And I love that because the whole idea of taking Pac-Man and making it 3D and isometric. That was, excuse me, Wendy Pops again. Apologies. I know, I only just got up as well. I thought the whole concept of Pac-Land, having Pac-Land, Pac-Mania, different type mazes, but they're all isometric, and giving you the additional ability of jumping. What simple but brilliant idea to completely elevate the gameplay. Love that. So again, I've tried to do this as best I can because people have asked this, but the thing is, this is like 35 years ago. And obviously it was across 5 years that we went there, so machines and that would change. And like I said, it sounds massive for me talking about it now. But it's probably not half as big as I think it was. It was wide though, which is how they could get away with all those hydraulic cabinets, especially that big fucking electromechanical helicopter game. That was absolutely insane. So there were probably a lot more machines in it than this that I can't remember, and probably a lot more machines in this that I have no interest in remembering because I never played them because they didn't, float my boat back in the day. But I've certainly covered all the ones that I certainly sank a fair few quid into, and this is hands down the best arcade. It wiped the floor with all the other arcades in the immediate area in Westward Ho. It wiped the the floor with all the arcades we got to experience before we went to Westward Ho, when we used to go to Minehead and Blue Anchor. Like this was, and it clearly wiped the floor. When we would come back and we would go to the arcades at Western Supermare on the seafront, because some of those were pretty cool, pretty impressive, but not any of them carried as many cabinets as this. Certainly not in one single location. If you combined the group of them all together, all the best machines, you would have had a shit hot one on par with this, but not in one building. This is why I'm a gamer still to this day. This just got in there as a kid. It did something. It hit a mark that never ever left me. In the Spectrum aided that, and the early days of the Master System and certainly the Mega Drive, they all complemented each other, and clearly are why I'm still so just so strongly fond of and still just love gaming. And these are the best holidays. These were better than my holidays in America, seriously. These were better than my holidays in America simply because you could go there and you were a little bit more obsessed about doing more gaming than other stuff. We used to play on the beach, we used to play football, we used to go swimming and stuff like that. We used to do day trips to other places. Particularly happy when we did those day trips to other places and there were arcades there where I got to play Hang On. Hang On wasn't in this one, oddly enough. Oh, there was a triple screen Pole Position 2. I want to say triple screen or double screen. It was the full sit down Pole Position 2 cabinet. Unless I'm confusing it with one, and I've just created a cabinet from memory. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Pole Position double triple screen, which again was impressive that you would sit inside it, but not really a game that needed those. And also when it was in the same arcade as Chase HQ and Outrun, not so much a game you would want to play. There was down this wall here as well, by just past, see what I mean about them all popping in there? Just past the arm wrestling machine, there was a Super Sprint, free steering wheel Super Sprint by Atari. Loved that, absolutely loved that. There was a Dig Dug along that wall as well, and a Xevious. Anyway, this has completely got away from me and I've been all over the shop. Hopefully you understand why when I'm trying to remember a specific arcade from my childhood. But yeah, hands down, best arcade ever been in my life, still to this day. And that's not nostalgia goggles and member berries, blurry eyes. That it is, it forever will be. It's sad that it no longer exists. Banging Fish and Chip Shop on the side of it. The memory of going there the first thing on the Friday night that we would arrive, when we broke up from the school holidays, like in the summer. Also we'd go for weekends, like at Easter and stuff like that, because it was about 2 hours from my house, so bloody long time when you were a kid, but not so much now. Yeah, just, I cannot explain to you. Hopefully you've got it, and this was more just like a descriptive video, I know, but it's been amazing trying to force myself to remember so much. And like I said, I've missed so much out, but that arcade, I mean, if it did have a name, if you were there at the time, and clearly I was just a fool, I was 11 when we first went there, then let me know. I'm pretty sure it didn't have a name, but it deserved one, because it deserved a title for being the best fucking arcade I've ever been in my life. Anyways, always, I'd love to know what you think, especially if you were like me and you were fortunate enough to go to seaside places or other places, you know, when you were a kid that had arcades of this pedigree. And if you did, I'd love to hear about them. And thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you later.